Can we look to find birds? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the North Woods. You know, bird watching, if you're going to get into it, and I highly recommend getting into it because you can do it anywhere. You can do it in the city, you can do it in the country, you can do it hiking, you can do it just going out for a walk around your neighborhood. It is a great way to just see different things. Had you asked me back when I was a kid, if we had birds where I was growing up, I'd say, oh, well, there were some gulls and I think there were some cardinals and some bluebirds and some redbirds. I didn't have any idea what birds were about at all. And what was funny is I went back to the place I grew up a couple of years ago and went camping. Oh, yeah, there's a ton of birds up there. So you know what? Getting into birding is great. Guy in my church just started getting into birding and he's having a great time doing it. And the idea is that it's fun. Now, we all get the idea, and I'll do an episode on this someday, you know, that you can get into bird identification by looking at the color of their chest or their top of their head or the back of their wing bands. There's all different ways of identifying birds. But one of the really good ways that people don't often think about is which vertical layer that bird is on. Now, think of it like this. There are sky birds, water birds, ground shrub birds, mid-tree, and canopy, top of the tree birds. And birds that like to be in specific layers. I mean, it's not that they can't cross over and go to a different layer, but the idea is that they tend to hang out in that particular way. And this is where you can find birds. So again, we think about bird identification by their song, by what color they are, how big they are, but this will help you in that way too. Because if you see a bird, so oftentimes Em and I are going out birding and I'm about to go on a big birding adventure coming up very soon. You think about, oh, I see a bird and I say, oh, wait a minute, is that a such and such? And Em will say, no, that's the birds on the ground. Those birds like to stay up in the middle of the trees. Now, like I said, that it can't happen, but it becomes less likely that you're seeing those birds because it's not in that area that they like to go to. And so if you start understanding that behavior, this is a bird that likes to be in the water, or this bird likes to be at the water's edge. This bird loves to fly high. This bird likes to be in trees and shrubs. Now, a lot of the reason why birds are in a particular area has to do with their food. Because think of it this way, that when you have bugs, birds that like to eat bugs, those bugs sort of fly at a mid-level. They're not way at the tip top, and they're not usually that close to the ground either. So the birds that like to eat bugs is going to be in that mid-level. Then you have birds that like to eat sea things, right? In the water, they get kelp and little crayfish and stuff like that. They're going to be in the water because that's where the food they like to eat is. Then usually the birds that are up in the sky, the way up sky, they're looking for prey. And because they have sonar, they have excellent vision, they're going to be looking down and then looking to see if they can find whatever it is they're looking for to eat. And then those birds that are in the trees and more of the treetops, a lot of those tend to be tree seed eaters, or they're getting bugs like caterpillars from inside the bark itself. So it just really depends, but that usually determines where that bird likes to hang out. The sky layers have swallows, swifts, martins, nighthawks, hawks, vultures, and cranes. Usually you can see bigger birds. There will be songbirds that are migrating, but those are hard to see when they're flying up high. Pelicans, those kinds of things. You'll see them flying up high. Again, they either tend to be migrating birds or more likely aerial hunters like the hawks. And then comes water birds. Those would be ducks, geese, herons, loons, grebes, kingfishers. They like to hang out by water. There's even a number of warblers that like to hang out at the water's edge because they're looking for little worms and things and bugs that are right there inside of the water. Even there, we can get into more. We'll talk about dabblers versus divers, web feet. You know, loons can't even walk on the ground. They have to swim. They need a runway to take off. So that way you can see those birds are going to hang in that area. Then in the ground area, those are going to be the robins, killdeers, sparrows. Think about thrushes and thrashers, towhees, and turkeys. They're going to be on that ground level walking around. That's where we're going to see them primarily. A lot of times they eat worms, they eat bugs and slugs that are in the ground, or even they may have nests that are on the ground. Think of killdeers and other types of nesting birds. Killdeers will have their nest sort of in a little hole in the ground. They sit on top of it, and then if you get too close, they'll start to make noise, and then they'll even maybe fake an injury trying to lead predators away from their nest, but they'll hang around at the ground level. Then at the shrub, thickets, underbrush, maybe the lower levels of trees, or maybe even the mid levels of trees, you get catbirds. Sometimes you'll even see thrashers there, wrens, towhees. Sometimes you'll see warblers there. The warblers are just on the verge of coming back here, but they like that protection. They might also be eating insects and berries inside of that low-level tree area. And then think about the middle layer, the lower canopy. You'll get cardinals, you'll get chickadees, nuthatches, woodpeckers, vireos. They like the protection of the trees, and then the bugs that like to fly in that particular area. Think of gnatcatchers, those kinds of things. They'll be in the middle layer. And then at the very top, tip-top of the trees, boy, for some reason, warblers love to be up there. And I know, like I said, there are bugs up there. Think about cedar waxwings. They also like the berries and the bugs, but they will go much higher up. Or there is even some birds that you'll see, like nuthatches and creepers, brown creepers, that will start at the top of trees and work their way down. There might be some that will crisscross that area. And then at that very top layer, you'll see warblers, tanagers, orioles, grosbeaks, cuckoos that will be in that area. And the idea with those very high up birds, you'll need binoculars. You'll have to get good at spotting binoculars inside of the canopies. I have a really good camera with a really huge zoom lens on it. It's an all-in-one, not a DSLR. Mine is a very simple camera, but it's able to zoom in way up in that tree canopy as long as there's not a lot of branches in the way, and zoom in and what kind of bird. And so sometimes I don't even see the bird. I take the picture of the bird and then look at the picture of it. And I just realized I forgot about one layer of birds while I was out walking around with my friend while we're finding birds. There are some birds who just like to hang out on a stick. It doesn't matter if it's a metal pole, a dead tree, a tree that hasn't had leaves yet, it's winter and it's coming in. They just like to be on sticks. And so you'll see them fly from stick to stick to stick. Sometimes they jump to the ground, but they'll always end up going back to sticks. Think about meadowlarks, sage phoebes, bobolinks. They all just enjoy being on sticks. So that is usually the easiest place to find them. And they're pretty easy to find quickly because there they are, standing on a stick. So I hope that helps, but learning the different landscapes, the different places where you can find them, and then we'll go even deeper. Is it a forest or a grassland? Is it spring or fall? You'll be able to find birds going there. So my challenge to you is go out there and look to see what layer you see various birds at. Do you see robins on the ground? Do you see cardinals in the trees? Go check that out and go find yourself a bird in some kind of layer. All right, everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate you listening and watching this. I'm brand new on YouTube when it comes to this podcast, and I hope to bring more visuals out to you, maybe even do some podcasts outside. I hope this helps you about learning about nature right outside your front door. Remember that you can always email me, Jill@startwithsmallsteps.com, comment here on the channel, and I would love to hear from you and about what kind of adventures you're having. Thanks so much. Have a great day.